of Die, the podcast which discusses all things relating to role-playing games and war games. I'm your regular host, Gordon, and in this latest episode we turn our attention to the Strontium Dog miniatures game, and I'm joined by writer and Strontium Dog fanatic, Allan Stenhouse. Welcome to Life of Die, Allan.
There, Gordon. Happy to be here.
Glad to have you. I always start podcasts with a bit of an origin story, telling you a little bit about your background with the game, and in this case, obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about the strip as well, because that's really where most of us started out with Strontium Dog, and I know you're no different. So I suppose the first question would be, what was your first 2000 AD prog? What issue was that?
Right, I think my first prog that I bought was 335, and the story in it was Judge Dredd was the Graveyard Shift and Strontium Dog was a Moses Instant. But my first experience with 2000 AD was a wee bit earlier, and I was up with a friends and we were just basically playing out with Star Wars figures or something, and I turned round and I seen under his bed that he had comics, which I'd never seen before, and it was 2000 AD, and the story was the Schickelgruber grab, and I looked at it and I was hooked. It was Carlos Esquera's art that just grabbed me, and for then I was hooked, and it was a wee bit later, it was another mate that I met who I'm still friends with this day, Kev, and Kev had a lot of the comics as well, and it just so happened they were the same ones, so I ended up swapping him some stuff and I was able to get these comics for him. So that basically introduced me into the world of Strontium Dog, but I started collecting it from prog 335 onwards, and I've still got every one of them. So of course it was the Moses Instant, and then that went on to the Killing, and the Killing is probably one of the most iconic stories just for its action, just this action packed all the way through, and it's one of my favourite Strontium Dog stories because of that, I would say.
Yeah. So that was your favourite, the Killing, then? Because we are going to talk a bit more about the Killing as well.
There's so many to mention, but Gordon, it's Outlaw is another cracker.
That's my favourite, Outlaw. That was the kind of first one. I think I read the Moses Incident in the best of 2000 AD. I think that was my first experience, and it was it's a pretty unusual one actually for Strontium Dog, because it's quite a dark storyline, the Moses Incident one, which I liked, but I didn't love it. But I remember it was actually the Quality Comics reprints, Quality Comics inverted commas. They put this horrible colour.
I remember them.
I know for a fact a lot of the artists absolutely hated, because I remember talking to Brian Talbot actually, but in fact, it was somebody in front of me. That's what I've said. I signed in with Brian Talbot, and somebody had the Quality Comics, and he said, "What did they put this on with? A roller?"
Yeah, it's really poor. It's really poor.
Yeah, it was awful, but it didn't stop me enjoying it actually. And it was the Outlaw story was the first one that I kind of got into, and I just thought it was amazing. It was a bit like some of the Dredd epics, which I was already familiar with at that stage through the Titan books. It had that. I think it was about 27 parts or something, Outlaw, so it had this real epic sweep to it, and it had a huge cast of characters who were all, and I think obviously Middenface appearing in that as a Scot, I really took to that. So it's always been my favourite Outlaw, but that's the reasons for it.
I mean, you're talking about that story really came out. It started off great, but you didn't know how big that story was going to be. I can remember reading that and going, where is this going? And spoiler alert, but when certain characters die off in it quite early, that's been iconic in the storyline, you were like, this is going to change the world of Strontium Dog forever. And then when Evans the Fist, Torso from Newcastle, and of course Middenface McNulty come into it, because they were so iconic in Portrait of a Mutant, when they come back into it, that storyline it became epic for me, really epic. So that one is one of my best. I mean, you think of that run, the run of that strip, it was the Moses Instant, then the Killing, and then Outlaw. That was the season of Strontium Dog, and then it had a big gap for a while. But they were just, every one of these stories was brilliant. And then, of course, the Max Bubba Ragnarok storyline, with Johnny going back meeting Wolf, and that goes into Rage. That is just epic. It's so difficult to pick a favourite strip, but all the kind of Golden Age stories, they're so iconic to me, and they're so vivid to me, even though the first time that I read them, I was about 15, 16, maybe a wee bit older. But it's brilliant, and it just shows the skill that John Wagner, Alan Grant, and Carlos Esquera had to create these storylines that just stand the test of time. They're timeless as well, they're not dated in any way. You can pick them up and read them again, and there's a lot of comedy in them, a lot of hardcore violence. You're like, how did they get away with this in a comic? When I think it's something like in Rage in particular, how he takes down some of the bad guys, you're cheering him on to when you're reading it and you're like a 16-year-old boy. cheering them on. But you think about how he does it. It's like, my goodness, I mean, he kicks one of the guys into over a cliff. One of the guys over a cliff into a squiddly dip, I think it is. It's called, just like a giant octopus. He kicks the guy in the foot, and the guy's actually in a wheelchair as well. You know, it's like, but then you remember exactly what he did to deserve it, but you don't care.
Yeah, it was fairly shocking as well, because the character of Johnny Alpha, while he was always dangerous, was the good guy. I mean, he always did the right thing, and so it was quite a shocking storyline for everything that went before. He always had that kind of bit of a heart of gold, and after this had happened, that it really flipped his character. But yeah, obviously he kind of came back a bit more after that, but that storyline, he was certainly not the same character. So yeah, I mean, I think that actually gave it some more weight as well. The fact that his character was going through a journey as well, that he totally changed.
Aye.
But yeah, thankfully not permanently, but.
Aye, because a while you thought, how's he coming back for this? But it was brilliant because they kept it going, for quite a while. And you thought he's lost his moral compass here. He's whatever humanity had. He's obviously went through a lot in his life, but he's still been able to keep that core. He is a good guy at heart.
Mm-hmm.
But with the shocking things that happened in the Ragnarok storyline, it just totally breaks him, But it's excellent, brilliant writing.
And I believe as well you've also had some contact with John Wagner over the years about Strontium Dog yourself.
Yeah, basically it was, I seen he'd put a post up on Facebook. For life of me, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I put a comment in, and he replied to me. And then I replied to his reply, and I was saying, by the way, he was writing the storyline, The Life and Death of Johnny Alpha at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I just so happened to say, any chance I've seen Evans the Fist again, because I've not seen him in a story since the Outlaw story. And he replied, he goes, the problem is when you get to my age, you forget the characters that are alive and dead. So I promptly reminded him of all the Strontium dogs that were still alive and who basically had fallen by the wayside. And he put Evans the Fist back in that story and Vince Scampi in that story, in the later parts of that story, purely because I reminded him that they were alive. And it was fantastic because there's also a couple of characters in that are in panels who are actually roleplay characters I created. And I asked him if he could include them, and he did. But there's a character called Skull, who's one of the roleplay characters one of my mates, Dave, played, and he was a sneaky, slimy wee guy in the game. But it's great because Carlos Esquire has done I sent John a picture of the miniature that I did. It was a converted miniature from a Warhammer 40k guy with a skull skeleton head. And it was great to see Carlos Esquire's version of him, because he'd drawn him for this miniature. And he's only in it at the start. And there's another character called Hardnose, who you don't hang by name, but he's a guy with an elephant's trunk, bald guy with an elephant's trunk. And you see him in the first part as well. So that was fantastic.
Yeah, that's amazing that Carlos Esquire converted a drawing of one of your miniatures. That's amazing.
What was actually amazing, even better, was see when I got the Life and Death of Johnny Alpha in the compendium version.
Mm-hmm.
Coincidentally, there was a copy of the first script that was done, and John Wagner actually makes comments. Insert these mutants in the background from the email that I sent you, and that was, he's referring to my mutants that I'd sent him descriptions of. To be honest with you, a couple of the things Carlos hadn't been able to do it because the panels were too small. So the guys in the background, he wasn't able to put in a recognisable form. But the Skull character, who actually gets a talk, and Johnny asks him, tells him to do something, and he says, right, he mentions, he gets a bubble. And the Hardnose character is very like Carlos has done. My mate Kev had done a version of his character drawn like Carlos Esquire, and I sent that to John, and Carlos drew... he done his interpretation of Kev's drawing because it's in the same pose. It was brilliant to see it. And the fact is that the character only came about because Kev tried to draw it in the Carlos Esquire style, and he done a great job of that. But it was great to see Carlos actually drawing it himself,
Carlos reinterpreting a drawing in his style.
Aye, reinterpreting it. It was fantastic. So having that rapport with John, and because I'm a big Strontium Dog geek and I know a lot, he obviously realised quite quick that not even Strontium Dog, Judge Dredd, I discussed some things in Judge Dredd, and John put the Apocalypse War team, he brought them back into Judge Dredd, purely because I asked him to do a story in it, and what a fantastic story he did for them. But of course, when I suggested this, I thought it was going to be a kind of last hurrah, Dredd teaming up with them again. But how John did it, making them all basically has-beens, trying to save one of them from the loony bin, was absolutely fantastic. And it's great to know that he had a wee bit of influence, so much so that he put in a Cadet Stenhouse for me.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I absolutely loved that.
I bet you did. No, I would. Yeah, I'm a bit jealous.
He didn't tell me he was going to do it, God. That's what was great about it. It was an unrelated story. The storyline was the Mechanismo, the most recent Mechanismo storyline. And there's a bit where he's talking to, Dredd keeps thinking these guys are going to turn, these robots are going to turn again. And there's a bit where he's talking to one of the Mechanismo guys, and he turns around and goes, "This is Stenhouse, my rookie." And Dredd goes, "They're giving you rookies now, you're robots. What's this coming to? What's happening here?" And my wee guy speaks in it. "Honour to meet you, sir," he says. But I didn't even know that was happening. But John did that, so that was absolutely fantastic. So much so when I met him at a forum, and I was talking to him, and it was like a giddy schoolboy talking to him. But he gave me a poster, a colour of Savas, and got it on my wall. It was a Dredd and Strontium dog print. So I've got that on my wall. I'm looking at it now.
Is that the iconic one from the end of the what's it? The Judgment Day storyline, isn't it? When they team up, is it?
The poster, it's Johnny Alpha, Middenface McNulty, Wolf Sternhammer, and Durham Red, and the Gronk, basically at the bottom of the panel. And then you've got Dredd and the Dark Judges on his left, and the War Marshal Kazan on his right. But it's a fantastic art print. So I got that for him, and he's a couple other things for Rock of the Reds when I was backing his Kickstarter for that. He had a Brian Bolland print that he was basically going to give away to anybody who asked. But I just basically said that, I would love it. And he said, "No, you've helped me out with my stuff throughout the years. I'm giving it to you." Everybody else was asking for it. But he gave it to me, so I've got that as well. So that was fantastic. Just a wee nod to say he was thankful. To me, it was absolutely no hassle to me too, because I just knew this stuff because I loved it so much,
Yeah.
So absolutely fantastic having that rapport with him, I must admit.
No, that is brilliant. So yeah, quite jealous. Anyway, so I suppose moving on from the actual strip to the game, obviously I'm guessing it was the fact that you already had that love with the source material that it kind of piqued your interest when the game was announced. So
Oh, fantastic, God. See, it's a double-edged sword, to be honest with you. I mean, when it came out, I just invested in another, the Aliens game, the AVP game, and I spent a lot of money. And then when I seen this was coming out, I went, "Oh no, I can't afford to take me. I'm not buying it." I thought to myself, "I'm not buying it." And then when I seen all the Wave 1 characters that was coming out, the Weird Brothers and others, obviously the Styx models, and I was like, "Oh, that I've got to buy this." And then when I actually saw the game itself and the fact you get the 3D scenery, I thought, "Oh, that is excellent." And I looked into the game a wee bit. The fact it was quite like other games I'd played, where the models had 2 action points. They could perform 1 AP actions, 2 AP actions. The card system, I thought, this is right up my street, and it seems to be quite a simplistic. No, I don't want to say simplistic, take anything away for the game, but it seems a very easy game to pick up. And in my games that I've been playing, I do feel that it is good to pick up. It's easy to pick up, straightforward to pick up, and the card mechanic's phenomenal. It really is great.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean by this when you're saying the simplicity of it. I don't take that to mean that it's as an insult in any way. It just means that it's a clean system. That I think for me, one of the kind of key elements of it is the dice. That when you roll the dice, you can see immediately what the result is, whether you've hit.
I love that.
I think that's a great thing, rather than the old. I'm used to it with other systems. Rolling the traditional 6-sided dice, and all right, 3+ is this, but you don't even need to think about it. You just see, right, there's a result. It's a hit or it's a miss, and that's the end of story. So I mean, I thought that was a great thing about the system, and I also thought the fact that it was, like you say, I think the cards. I mentioned this in some of the previous interviews with Gavin Andy about the card system being particularly great because it had 2 things about it. One was the actual rules that the cards actually have, which are thematic to the strip, and secondly, those iconic Esquerra pieces of art which sum up what the things do. So it always means you've got that link with the source material, which I just thought it was amazing. But yeah, you like the cards in particular, then.
The cards, the thing is, as you're saying there, I see like things like Time Bomb and how devastating the time bomb is.
Mhm.
If you are lucky enough to have one of them and a character's in range, I mean, there's characters that haven't even got evade. They've not even got a chance to get away from it.
They do get one dice. If in case you've missed that, they do get one dice. They get one evade.
Did it always get one evade? I thought...
Always get one evade. You always, yeah, I think you add +1 from memory to your evade when you're...
So everyone gets a chance?
I've just grabbed my rule book here, and on page 20, it says, yeah, target attack by blast type weapon +1. Note this means even models with no evade stat get a small chance to dodge blast. You know, it's only a 1 in 6 chance of
It's still something.
doing it anyway, but yeah, there you go. So yeah, I think I've just derailed the entire conversation here. Right, where were we? We were talking.
Right. Well, we've got to get these things all ironed out before the great tournament, you know, so got to make sure that we know exactly everything that we're doing.
Yeah.
Got to be fair to every one of the 100 participants, you know.
Exactly. So yeah, we were talking about the cards and about, yeah, you were talking about the time bomb, in particular the armory cards, about how you liked them. And I don't think we'd mentioned the chicanery cards either.
Oh, but they're fantastic too, because they're so iconic as well, and the things that happen. There's the fauna one, and it shows you the indigenous fauna, I think it is, and it shows you the demise of Impetigo Jones on the artwork. I mean, it's just fantastic. These are things that can happen and do happen in the strip, and the fact they've been able to bring them in, and it's going to actually affect gameplay. And what's great is, you know, you can think that you're in top, you're basically killing everybody. Oh, my guy's so good, and he's a starship guy, and he's mauling all the other players because they're all just normal chips.
Mm-hmm.
And then cards can totally mess you up. In one of the games I was playing, you get caught. Wolf was running about. He was just basically charging. He'd used the charge card. I think it killed Skull, and then basically he killed another character. I think it was Brute. It was one of Bubba's other guys. And then next minute he gets caught in a time trap thrown by Bubba himself. So the overall end of the game, Bubba wins, and he hardly did anything in the whole game. Whereas Wolf ran about killing just about everybody and then gets caught in a time trap. And it's just phenomenal, because my mate Ian, who was playing that character, he was like laughing in glee one minute, and then the next minute he just went, "What happened there?" And we were all gutting ourselves. We were all laughing. We were like, "Well, that's what you get for being so cocky," you know. I think there was a few expletives involved with that.
we had a similar thing. We played a 4-player game of Strontium Dog, myself and my friends, and one of the things that happened in it was one of the players, his whole team get like annihilated pretty quickly, and he was out of the game. He was first out of it, and everybody else was still battling away for quite a while, and then eventually we were down to the end of it, and then we said, "Oh, that's the game over." And then he went, "No, it's not." And he threw down playing dead, and one of his characters got up and killed the other one. So like,
that is so good.
He was totally out of it.
So good.
So the chicanery cards are amazing, and they keep twisting things all the way through, so you can never feel secure in what you're, which is a great thing, because it means it's totally unpredictable. And I think that's a great thing, that you can have a game delivering twists when, you know, as I've kind of said before, that some games, once the power kind of is going one way, you kind of usually know how it's going to play out. It's unusual that you would be able to pull it back, you know, in certain war games. So yeah, I think that's an amazing thing about the system.
It's brilliant, must admit.
So you're about to embark, since we mentioned the killing earlier on. You're about to embark, but it's already underway, the work on it. So do you want to talk a bit about the killing, about your campaign?
Well, the Killings came about. It's been a storyline that's obsessed me right back through the days of Strontium Dog and when I first read it. And it's been so many incarnations throughout the years for me. I one time done a Unreal Tournament computer game version of it, in which I had my friends playing certain characters throughout that, through deathmatch mode. Done a photo story version of it, things like that. But when the game came out, I realised right away, as soon as I've got all the miniatures painted, I'm going to do a killing tournament, and it was going to be one of my main focuses for it. It took me a while to get it all ready, but because I wanted to have 100 participants, models for each guy, and I wanted to have a varied mix. So I tried to I've got multiple Warlord models. I think it's about 60 odd Warlord models. I got every Warlord Strontium Dog model that's on that's out. Plus, I've got 4 Build a Mutie boxes, and also a couple of other packs that I was able to pick up. got a Durham Red conversion, Midden Face, a Blubberlips conversion. Basically, what I've done is I've just head swapped characters, painted them different, make them look like different people. And then I used some Star Wars miniatures from HeroClix game because they're the same scale. And I basically took some of the lesser known aliens for that, and then some Warlord characters for the Gates of Antares. I use them as kind of granulins, the Rockmen, because they look like the Boromites, the characters are called. So I use them because they fit in really, really good. And they're a wee bit smaller than the granulins, you know, from the storyline, the Durham Red storyline, Stonekillers, yeah. But they can fit as a kind of subspecies, you know. And because it's a alternative dimension, it's a retelling of the killing, but it's an alternative dimension. So this explains why you've got characters like Durham Red and Midden Face and all that in it. And you've got some characters that are the same that featured, but you've got other characters that you're like, they weren't in the killing, but it's a retelling of it. And hence why my Johnny Alpha might be a kind of darker, kind of less. Well, we're talking about him, his moral compass. He's got even less of a moral compass than this. So there will only be one victor in this. It's not going to be like when you get to the end of the killing and he uses a time bomb for him and Wolf to get out. No, they have made the decision here that it's a battle to the death because the prize is just too much. I think it's 1 billion galactic credits have made the prize rather than the 1 billion Zeddies. So it's considerably more. And it's going to be the main reason I'm doing it is because I want to see who would be the best, me the best man. I want to see who would be the victor. But how I'm doing it again it's slightly different for the game. Every character, as well as their weapons that they've got, every character gets an equipment card and gets a chicanery card at the start of their bout. If they use their equipment, that's it, used and gone. But if they emerge victorious for their bout, and they kill other guys, they can raid them and get their equipment if they have not used that. So that will proceed with them into the next bout. Their chicanery card always stays with them, and if they play that, it immediately gets refreshed at the start of the next bout, because that's like a kind of character quirk that they've got. It's a skill that they've got. So because of that, they can't steal dead characters' chicanery. Once that character's dead, that chicanery is discarded, and it will eventually get reshuffled as the characters progress. You know, obviously there's only so many chicanery and so many equipment. But basically, if you're in the first bout, basically you've got a full deck of cards to choose from. And as when I've been planning the first bout, it's been hilarious what's come up. The 3 characters that I've got a star character and 2 single chip characters, and one of them has got a small nuke. One of the smaller characters. And I'm like, he's a plebby guy. You're thinking he's absolute rubbish, but his equipment that he's got is a small nuke. One of the other guys has got a med pack, and then one of the other guy, the star player, has got anti-grav shoot. But unfortunately, it won't really save him for this because they're fighting in a lava field. So if anybody falls into the rents, it's instant elimination. So I've done wee tweaks to the rules for that. It's basically the same as falling. If you're hit in an edge, within an inch of an edge, you've got to make a pull test, and if you don't roll any armour or special, you basically fall in, but you're instantly eliminated. And you can jump over the rents by performing a 2 AP action leap, climb action. But again, you have to make a cool test and roll either an armour or a special to be successful. So it basically means that anyone can go in this because the map is highly treacherous. But as the games progress, you'll get other maps that haven't got hazards. There's a thing called a mechanic with drones in it, and these drones can either be camera drones in which they don't do anything. They can be combat drones and they can attack the nearest model. Or they can have med kits, and if you get close to them and spend a 1 AP interact, you basically get a med pack for store that you can keep and use whenever. So there's loads of wee different elements into that, fauna and flora in certain maps. The Neverglades features, it's like a portion of the killing ground that's been inspired by the Neverglades, and it's like a wee mini Neverglades swamp, which a cluster's going to fight in, and there's loads of fauna going to be in there. So you're going to have man-eating plants and creatures that can basically attack anybody. And what I'm wanting in that storyline, I'm wanting actual the participants to be half concentrating and trying to kill their opponents, but half concentrating and trying to survive going up against these plants. So the characters is going to be randomly placed on the map, and the models, the fauna and flora is going to be randomly placed on the map. So it might just be your Donald Duck where you're landing, if you're landing in next to a giant man-eating plant. So somebody might go the way of Silent Weird in the Gronk affair when he gets hit with out of the ejector seat of the crashed space shuttle, which was another iconic moment. So again, it'll be fun actually seeing Silent Weird in it, because he might not have his brothers, because everybody appears at a random location. So I don't hold up much hope for Silent Weird. I don't think he's going to last very long.
Does he not only get cool one or something like that? So it's like
he's total garbage.
Yeah, he's. But I suppose just getting back to what you were saying there about the alternate reality, I mean, just to be clear, this means that really anyone can die, and there's no plot armor for Johnny and Wolf and Middenface and the likes. Middenface should have plot armor. Can I just say that? It should.
No, it's got to be fair. And the thing is, as much as I love Middenface myself, obviously soft spot for him because I'm a Scotsman myself, but the character is just so funny. But he's tough, he's hard as nails as well. But I'm determined to make this completely... Everybody thinks Johnny's going to win, because he's the best in the notoriety. Everybody's been pointed out with notoriety. The majority of the guys that come close is about 16 notoriety, but he's still about 23, 24, something like that. If you're playing the version there that's in the book with boys' gear. So nobody can really come close. But like I say, because he's not getting all the gear that he's normally got, you'll get one extra. If you've got the equipped or well-equipped skill, you get one extra gear card. So anybody that's got that gets, in this tournament, it's going to be 2 gear cards they'll have. And 1 chicanery. Equally, the schemer will have 2 chicanery and 1 gear card. So it's actually better if you're a schemer in this, because it means you've got 2 character traits that can help you. But it's all random as well. It's whatever that card is that comes out. And some of them, I've tried to remove all the ones which I don't feel is relevant, like payday ones and things like that. But there's other ones. There's a great one. It's gear, and it's the infrared torch or tracer beam, which allows you to become the protagonist. And that's quite important in these rules that I've added on, these solo rules. Because how it works is, if you're playing it, the protagonist, normally if you've got a Starship player character in the mix, it's normally going to be a Starship player that will be the protagonist. And how that means, they're the character that you play completely tactically. You basically, as if you're up against an opponent. The other opponents, they're like NPCs, and there's basically you roll a d6 for how they'll behave. And there's anything from playing the percentages, which is if you roll a 1 in that dice, that means they're like Steel Krieg. They just sit back and let everybody else fight, and you've got to come to them. So they'll be quite hard to winkle out. And then you've also got the using cover, which is basically if you roll a 4 or a 5, they basically advance, but they're still using cover. But my favourite is number 6. If you roll that in the D6, it's called Going Postal. And that basically means you just charge. You don't care if you're in cover or if there's any cover around you. You just charge towards the closest opponent. And if you can take the damage when you get hit, great. But, you might be lucky and take the damage, or you might get gunned down. But it means if you're actually, as luck would have it, one of the characters has rolled that for the first bout, and he's a close combat specialist. So it's basically, he wants to get in close.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic because it's sheer luck he's got a med pack as well. So it means that if he does get hammered, he can get rid of that med pack and get his wounds back. So I'm seeing him as a bit of a threat, to be honest with you. And he's not a star character, this guy. But he's good. He's a close combat specialist. He's absolute rubbish. He's only got 1 dice in shooting. So he's got something like 4 in close combat. So he's pretty good. But again, and the fact he's got that med pack and he can cash that in and basically get his wins back, I think is going to be a threat. It's providing he can jump over the lava right enough. The lava routes, because he might try his first move and fall right in. So we'll need to wait and see how that goes. I'm sure there'll be some right comedy moments in this, as well as some action-packed moments. So I'm really looking forward to it, I must admit, playing it out.
And so I suppose for anybody that's listening that hasn't already seen anything about this on social media, where can they follow the Killing? And where can they find your solo rules as well, because they're also available?
Yep, they're on the Bistler blog. You'll see them on your YouTube channel as well. So everything will be going up there. Yes, really? Remarkably.
I was meaning more from your side of things, but
well,
and things like that. But
you'll basically be seeing it on the Facebook pages, the 2000 AD Wargamers Facebook page. I put it up there, and I'm trying to get as many of the Strontium Doghouse. There's another one I'm going to be putting up in. And basically, I'll be doing a kind of picture version of the battle reports. And then obviously, you'll be doing the video version as well with the excellent music and all that on it. The Sawtooth synth. Fantastic. So it's good to have the different versions, you know, and you can click through it as if you were reading a comic, because I'm going to be putting bubbles on it and things, and maybe the odd wee special effect. We'll see how it goes. I mean, already for the map, the establishing shot of the map, I took my humble lava field that I had. It was 3D polystyrene scenery, and I've extended it out using Photoshop so that it goes to right the edge, so it looks as if that's a lot bigger than what it actually is, you know. But I'll be doing wee things like that. I've got backdrops which I've bought for model railways to give the pics a bit of depth. So I'm thinking it should actually be pretty good. I was determined in this that every single bit of scenery is going to be 3D. Unlike my Alien vs Predator campaign that I did in AVP Wargamer, like that's 2D. It's board based, so it's got 3D miniatures, of course, but it's not got a lot of 3D scenery. But I was determined in this, everything's got to be 3D, and I want to create like a photo story version of the comic strips so that it's faithful to the source material, you know. Mm-hmm. So it should be interesting, to say the least.
So yeah, you can check out those groups on Facebook. But yeah, as you mentioned, if you're wanting to see these will all be collected on my blog, and hopefully I'll be able to keep up with Allan and his progress with the.
I'm totally obsessed with it. It's like my wife said to me yesterday. I could just see her face walking about. I think I was on the computer for Sunday. It must have been for about 12 to about 8:45. I had a couple of breaks for my dinner and all that, but because I was trying to put the fine tunes on the format, the bout format, you know, for how I'm going to present it, and I've got that done, and I know it's all going to be a lot easier now because I know how every bout is going to be presented, and obviously a lot of it's going to be like my Alien vs Predator stuff, where it's going to go through each turn and each character action, and it's going to be like part kind of learning guide for the game and also part story, you know, mainly focusing on the story because it's going to be narrative driven, but it's still going to outline, you know, when dice are rolled and you're going to see photographs of the dice, you know, to prove there were certain hits and stuff. And as I say, everything's get done random. If somebody's unlucky and they die. That's just the way it is. So part of me is what's intriguing me about the whole thing myself. It's like, as I'm saying, everybody thinks Johnny's going to go, but, you know, it's just through bad luck he can go, you know, quite early. He's not going to go far, you know, so that's part of what's getting who is going to be the victor, you know, who's going to be the last man standing. And it'll probably take me about the rest of the year to find that out, but I'm hoping to get one mission played every fortnight, and then obviously I'll spend the rest of the fortnight getting all the shots edited and getting them to yourself and getting them put out in both forms, you know, so, but busy.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to keep up and make videos of them as well. But I mean, really, it's you that's doing the lion's share of the work. I'm not saying that I'm doing a lot there. All I'm really doing is you're doing the work with running the games, writing the games, editing the reports, providing all the photography, and all I'm really doing is stitching it together in a video, which is not.
I know, but don't sell yourself short there, Gordon, because when I seen that video you put together, I was like, wow, it was absolutely phenomenal. And with that music on it, it just adds another element.
Yeah.
So it's so good.
It's a family member that does the music, so yeah, thanks. I'll pass that on to me.
It's class. It's like, and I see the people that's saying the thing that I think's really great about the soundtrack in particular is it's got elements of the 80s to it, that kind of synth sound like Tangerine Dream and John Carpenter, some of the classic 80 films, and it fits the Killing excellently because they're the soundtracks you were hearing in your head when you were reading the strip way back in the 80s when it was out. So it's so good, and I'm walking about the house humming it. You know? See the last melody you put in after the last participant, that wee melody. I'm walking about with that in my head, humming that constantly. And I can see the Wayne looking at me like that, him doing that tune again, you know.
So that's really nice. No, thank you.
No, it's great.
one of the things I was just going to ask you there about, because in the campaigns, in the normal campaign, it asks, once the scenario's resolved, it asks about whether you're subdued or incapacitated. So you can be out of it. I mean, are you dead, I suppose, is the question.
Yeah. Unlike the other games when you're doing a campaign in Strontium Dog, basically no one ever really dies unless you're wanting them to die.
Yeah.
Obviously, because I can understand why you did that, because you've only got a certain amount of models and nobody wants to lose their favourite guy if you're doing a normal standard campaign. But for me, dead is dead, and particularly with a killing, it's an elimination contest. So as soon as your guy is out in an incapacitated form, he's dead. He's gone. There's no way he can come back. The only way that he can potentially get out of it is if he uses like a dimension warp card to leave the killing ground. But that basically means he's kind of weaseled out of that match. And eventually, all he's done is lose his card, and he'll eventually need to fight again. But what's great is, if you've got that card, and you're, as luck would have it, you're going up against, you picture you're not a star chip character, a normal standard chip character, and you're fighting 3 other guys who are all star chips. And as soon as you see that on the map, you're thinking, oh, I'm out of here. I'm going to play my dimension warp card, and I am out of this map. That's when you would do it. So it's great to have that potential option. And again, these are some of the things that I'm really looking forward to coming up, because you might get really rubbishy characters, like, say, the Gronk, for example. He's a fantastic medic. He can't fight. And in this storyline, I put him in. At first, I wasn't going in, and I went, no, it's hilarious, because Johnny's forced him to go in, hoping that he'll meet up to use his skill, right? To use his skill to help him. But obviously, he's got to play on a map with him, because if you've got characters you're allied to, and say, for example, there's 4 characters on a map and 2 of them are allies, they will automatically team up, kill the opponents, and then they will remain as team members and progress through the campaign. So it basically means if one of them is randomly rolled to fight in the next bout, the other guy will be with them. They'll stay as a team up until the final, in which everybody will need to fight it out. But for the Gronk's point of view, if the Gronk appears on the map, he will not fight. But anybody that moves close to him has the choice of spending an interact action and getting them to join them. And then they've got a personalised medic that will follow about with them, healing their wounds when they need, until someone kills them and then takes a Gronk for them. So the Gronk could easily get killed, if someone just wanted to kill him. But to me, that won't really happen. He's like a med pack, a constant med pack there to help you if you've taken any wounds. So who wouldn't want that? So it'll be interesting to see that play out, and I'm looking forward to doing some of the "oh my poor heartsies" bubbles on him, and that, when as the storyline progresses, it'll be quite funny. Characters like him, characters like Silent Weird, I'm expecting a lot of comedy value for the guys. Obviously, Middenface as well. There'll be some comedy for him as well, providing he doesn't die after the first shot, But I don't think there'll be much chance of that. He's too tough for that.
Remember as well that the Gronks, there's a misprint in his card. He's cool as only one.
Oh, aye.
Because I've had that FAQ'd by Andy. So that's one thing to bear in mind. And so just picking up again on what you were saying there about them teaming up, you're using how, like, in the rule book it says about who their allies are, who they can team up with. So
yeah.
I'm assuming then that those allies, that means that some of them can group together. So you could have Johnny and Wolf teaming up. They're not just out for themselves. Well, not necessarily, but
yeah.
If they meet each other, they can team up and against the other participants. That's kind of the idea, yeah.
Yep. The main characters, there's about 40 main characters, of which I've designed some cards myself to take the characters up to the main star step characters up to about 40. Then there's 60 kind of basic characters, minor characters. But of those, I think it's mainly the Starship characters, but there might be some minor. I think there's some minor characters that they say they're allies on it. So Johnny's obviously got Middenface, I think Durham Red, Kidney, Wolf, the Gronk. There's quite a few he's got.
There's a lot, because there's all the kind of mutant generals and all that kind of stuff as well. So
yep. So, and you've got the mutant generals as well. They've got their own wee kind of clique as well. You've also got obviously the Weird Brothers, and you've got the Howlers, stuff like that. They've all got their own wee different cliques. But how I've done it is, because there's kind of northwest, northeast, all the 4 different coordinate points on the map. I've split the 100, totally rolled random. The 100 have been split into 25 characters for each location. So that's all been done random. And then of those 25, the first bout, for example, is in the northwestern zone. So I've rolled 3. It's 3 combatants, because it's a quite small map. So I've only done 3 combatants on that. So they're basically, you roll randomly again for that. So the first game has come up with 3 guys that aren't allied to anybody, so it's just going to be a free-for-all. But equally, that could have come up with 2 of the guys that were allies and 1 of the guys that wasn't. So they would automatically, providing they can, because then I roll randomly to see what part of the map they come on. So the allies might not come on together, but the allies automatically know, because the thing is you're supposed to have like a kind of chip, I always say, for the game, so that you know that there's opponents in the area. So it's maybe like a wee transmitter planted under them so that you know that there's enemies in the area. So that's kind of how they're getting together and fighting. But and the actual flow of the story will be they progress inwardly. So you start off at the northwest, northeast, whatever, and you move to the central area in the map, which is a city. And the final's probably going to be in a kind of internal complex of some sort, because I've got a fantastic map for that. Battle system map that I'm going to use for that.
Good. Battle systems is great. I've got that stuff as
Oh,
well.
it's brilliant in it. So I've got elements like you've got, first ones is like the volcanic badlands, and then you've got the forestry, which is a nice kind of forestry area that's in the northeast. And you've got the Neverglades to the southeast, the badlands, which is a kind of standard desert stuff, that's to the southwest. And then as you progress in, I've got like mine, kind of mountain system with a mine in it, a shanty town. I've even got a shopping mall for The Walking Dead. The map's phenomenal. It looks so good. And I'm maybe going to take it to the guy that's running this now, this mysterious figure called the Crimson King. He's taken some elements from Old Earth, shall we say, and he's put them there because he thought it'd be quite a good wee thing to see people fight and die in. So I might put that in, depending who's left, to be honest with you, because I've worked out about 50 maps, but depending on the size of the map, I might decide to put more characters in it, more randomly rolled characters in it. They're designed to go up for anything up to 8 participants fighting at the one time, but I think I'll be keeping them initially small, 3, 4, maybe a maximum of 6 I might go. But again, it all depends on the size of the map, because I don't want everybody appearing on a tiny wee map and then immediately having to fight it out. I want to be a wee bit, to use tactics and stuff, to give everybody a wee bit of a chance. But it'll be interesting to see how it things out, and obviously to be able to get the opportunity to put all this 3D scenery that I've got.
Yeah.
Finally get a chance to use it. So I've been sitting up that loft for ages.
I think from a visual point of view, that'll make it really exciting as well. It keeps it fresh all the time. You're using different terrain all the time. So.
Oh, different. As again, I've got swamp terrain. I've got obviously the deserts. Internal terrain, I've got the battle system stuff. I've got a bridge. That's going to be one. But I've got a monorail, which is raised off the ground with a wee kind of, that's TT combat scenery, that. So it's actually got a monorail car on it, and that will be in part of a city. And then I've got a freeway, which is Sarissa Precision, I think. It's fantastic for the Dredd game, that. So there's going to be a battle on the freeway with vehicles and stuff. And talking about actually having vehicles in it, might actually have it that if somebody's able to get you a vehicle, they can jump in the vehicle and try and mow the other characters down, but it's like maybe in the middle of the map. But they're wee rules that I'm kind of working out, and I'll see if they work, see if they don't. But in the meantime, I'll actually be playing the real bouts. Like I say, start small, build up, so that people are getting the best entertainment out of this, and I'm obviously getting the best entertainment out of it myself, and utilising all the stuff that I've got for my years of wargaming, role playing, all this stuff that I've picked up, but a lot of which I've never had a chance to use, to be honest with you. So I'm looking forward to finally getting that on the gaming table.
It sounds great. I'm really excited to see what you send through and build the videos. And I think it's going to be great. And I'm sure any Strontium Dog fan will be keeping a close eye on what's coming out for it. So I'm sure it'll be a great success. I suppose while we're here, I mentioned at the top there that you're a writer as well as a Strontium Dog and fan and gamer. So I just was wondering if you want to say anything about any of your projects and your Dark Id productions that you've got.
Yeah, well, Dark Id Productions is my Facebook page, and it is a 1:6 scale photo stories, but they're basically mini movies, thousands of photographs. I've got an alien storyline on that, which has got 1:6 scale dragon models and Ultimate Soldier guys. I shot that in about year 2000, so a lot of the figures is dated now. Story's quite good. It's still quite good. And then other ones that I've done, I've got 2 sides to every story, which is a World War II skirmish mission. And that's an American team of GIs going up against a ragtag group of Germans. And it's in the Ruhr pocket. It's during 1945, April, May. And it's basically when the Germans was a rabble and retreating across the Rhine. And the US were sending out patrols to go behind enemy lines. And I based it then basically because of a lot of figures for different divisions, especially for the Germans, and I had to make it by seeing the different insignia on the uniform. It would kind of make sense, these guys working together, because basically the Germans were all these different divisions all fighting together at that stage. The Volkssturm, you had the kind of the young and the old Germans that had been drafted into the army and were forced to fight. And the essence of that story is, like the title suggests, the two sides to every story. It's basically both squads have got good and bad in it. You predominantly see the Americans as being the heroes, as they're always presented in the kind of Hollywood side, but there's some right despicable characters in the Americans, and obviously you've got in the Germans, you've got despicable orientated characters, but you also have just a young boy and an old man just trying to survive the war, and a couple of Eastern Front veterans who are disillusioned that just want to go home as well. So the essence of that story, you're trying to get audience sympathy for both sides, and you know inevitably they're going to clash and people are going to die. So I've got that, and then a couple of fantasy stories set called The Realms of Darkness, and they are basically my version of Lord of the Rings meets Conan the Barbarian, Dungeons and Dragons, Game of Thrones, very adult orientated. Again, I put a lot of special effects on these. There's blood splashes when the sword hits, and for the ones with firearms, muzzle flares when the firearms fire. So, and I smudged the joints and the figures to try and make them look as real as possible, because these are basically my actors. Can't afford to get the films made, but these are my actors. So, don't just think you're going to go in and see like a guy playing with his action men here. You know, there's been a lot of thought put into these. I've had the characters fighting, sword fighting, almost like your Ray Harryhausen stop motion style.
All right.
No quite as with frame by frame, but if you were clicking through the photos fast, you actually see them move and see them jumping. I prop them up in kebab sticks and then use a clone tool and Photoshop to remove them so you can't see them. And it looks as if the character's floating in the air on some of these. So I've got a couple of these still to come, but they've been kind of put on hold because of other potential stuff that I'm doing. But I've got two of them fully shot. They're fully shot. They're really ambitious stories to finish off this kind of part of my life. But like I say, they take ages to edit. So putting the special effects on is going to take a while on them. So that's Dark Ed Productions, and then I've got a couple of novels up on Amazon. I've got To the Victor of Spoils, which is a combat thriller, kidnapping, and a bunch of mercenaries is hired to go in and rescue this person that's been kidnapped by the guy's best friend, who's a charismatic billionaire. But it ends up, when they get to the place they're to go, they find out there's more to it than meets the eye. So a lot of twists and turns in that. That's a quick, hard-hitting, violent, militaristic storyline with, like I say, a lot of good characters. I like a lot of the characters created in that. And then Damnation Dawn is my apocalyptic one. I wrote in 1997. I think I started that in the build-up to the millennium, when the world was going to end, apparently. And basically that comes with a lot of Bible mythology, whatever way you want to see it. But I put a lot of research into that to get that right. And that's murders are getting carried out in the streets of New York. Ancient Hebrew engraved into the child. The victims, who are all children, into their chests. And it's the cops trying to solve it. And again, that's really, really dark storyline. It starts off as a thriller and then it becomes something else. So that's a long book. That's really a lot. But I think if you invest the time in that, I think you'll enjoy it, because there's a lot of good characters in that as well. And then upcoming projects, I've got No More Room in Hell, which is 4 books, Glasgow set zombie saga. And that was based on the what if I was up on the town with my mates having a drink and a zombie virus was released. What would happen? That was where that premise came. So it's set in Glasgow. A lot of humour in that one. That's basically like The Walking Dead 28 days later meets Still Game, and Tune the Fat for the outlandish characters that's in it. Your kind of tongues in your cheek for a lot of it, but to be honest with you, it's hard hitting and extremely random, the people that die in that, because it was in true role-play style. It was adapted for an email role-play that I did with my pals, who all feature as fictionalised characters in it. And it's anybody could die anytime. So much so, if somebody's reading that and someone dies and the reader's shocked, I was as shocked as them a lot of the time, because I didn't realise that person would go. There's some characters that you feel you need in stories to drive the plot, but in that I tried to make the plot so that everybody had a bit of character. and the plot wasn't really needed. There was nobody really needed to drive the plot. The plot in itself was a character. So the survivors were just carried along with whatever way it went. And there's some really unpredictable moments in that, right up until the last bit when the characters are trying to escape the coast to the Scottish Islands. So I've got that coming, and then I'm currently editing my Realms of Darkness novel, which directly links into my 1:6 scale stories on Dark Id. And that's a story of a female elf mage, and it's a basically journey of discovery, basically trying to find out her past. And it's basically like Dungeons and Dragons, Lord of the Rings, just all the good stuff that you would like for fantasy. And that's going to be a 6-series omnibus, basically. It's going to be, each part's going to be about 300 pages. So that's all I wrote. I wrote that in about 2005 to 2008. So I'm just splitting it into volumes now. I'm currently on volume 3 of that. So I'm fitting that in as well as doing my killing tournament and everything else, So
I don't know how you get the time.
Busy. Well, that's it. I mean, I get paid off. I'm not working now, so I get paid off a couple of years back. So we used the time to bring up my Wayne, but now that she's back in nursery, I'm trying to get as much done as possible, So I'm basically working non-stop, working at the weekends and stuff. But I enjoy doing it, so don't really see it as work, So
yeah,
it's enjoyable. So I'm doing a lot at night and stuff, but I've had to make up a schedule to say, right, I need to do that, I need to get this, I need to get that. Obviously, I'm about 4 or 5 years behind, but it's just the problem is I go for one project, to finish one, then I go into another, and in between that, I'll maybe think of something else. Like 5 years ago, I didn't have the killing planned, but that's now became quite prominent in my mind. So it's going to be my creative gaming, what I'm going to be concentrating on for that side of my life. But in some ways, the pandemic has helped that immensely, because my writing, my creative stuff, I've been focusing on that, and so much so, like, my No More Room in Hell, that's all totally ready to go, and I never expected all that ready to go, and I'm just waiting for my covers to get finished for that, and then they'll be going up, 4 parts going up all at one time, so people can pick them up on Amazon, and if they could pick them up one at a time, or if they want to just invest in it all, great, because the full story's there, going to be there at one time, because there's nothing worse, I feel, that when you see one volume come out, it's something, and you go, oh, that's fantastic, when's the next one going to come out? And a true example of that is Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. Which I've never personally read any Game of Thrones. Well, I love the TV show, but you never know when George R.R. Martin's going to do another volume of that, and a lot of the fans are cracking up. I don't put anything out unless the entire story's done. So my volumes will all be coming quite close together. So all my No More Room in Hell, that's all done. It's all ready to go, and that's why I want to put them out all at one go. When I'm ready to do Saga itself, the Realms of Darkness one, they'll be going up very close to one another. But I want to get them all finished and in the in a presentable form, so that they can basically go up one after another. So, because I've hated that before in my past, and then I think a lot of the time you finish a book and then you've got to wait a year, 2 years for the next part to come out, and you've basically forgot a lot. You've got to go and read the book that you got before again. So in these, I've tried to actually do, if somebody picked up volume 4 of the 6 of the Realms of Darkness, I've done a truncated form at the start, that they would be able to know what's happened in the storyline up until that point. And so obviously they're better to go back and read other volumes, but I've tried to do it that way so that it's friendly to new readers, coming in midway through, But really busy, but as I say, it's enjoying doing it, and I feel driven to do it. That's why I do so much, I think. It's what I think I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
Feel just, that's it. Instinctual for me to do it.
I know that feeling.
Aye. Thankfully, I've got a wife that puts up with it. That's the thing, aye. She's always just lets me go on with my creative stuff, and that's fantastic,
Great stuff. So yeah, I'll drop some links under the podcasts wherever you happen to be listening to this. And as I say, keep an eye out on the 2000 AD groups. I'm also going to try and post this stuff up in the 2000 AD forum for anyone that's just there. And yeah, watch out for it wherever you can find it. So I suppose all that remains to say is thanks for coming on, Alan, and talking about it. And I'm sure everybody's as excited as I am about seeing how the killing progresses.
You're very welcome. It's great to be able to just go on and just talk about stuff that interests me. So yeah, anytime we'll do updates if you want to do updates.
Yeah, we'll do some more podcasts in the future. I think we'll try and maybe talk about some of the actual gameplay as well, about some of the rules and some of the abilities of the characters and the best way to play the characters. I think actually probably one of the things we could do is if it's get characters in your bouts that are now like the ones that Warlord have created, talk about some of those specifically, because I've pretty much broken down every single character, I think, and analysed them. I think I've still got the mutant generals to do. I think the kind of and the Creelers, but other than that, I think I've got everything that was in the book anyway.
I think the Creelers is going to be an interesting take, because obviously in the storyline there's a team of 5 Creelers that work for the Crimson King, and things is kind of geared towards them a wee bit. And one of them's got the Nelson Creelman figure, even though it isn't him, I think he's got a time bomb, a preset time bomb, so he's going to have that as part of his gear automatically. So I'll be interested to see how that mechanic works into the scenario, because I think you can either use it to evacuate the map if you wish, or you can use it like a time bomb. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So I'll do that. I'll try and concentrate on some of the actual official characters and see how they can be slotted into people's own games, what tactics to use, which will help you out to achieve your mission objective,
Yep, well, plenty more on the way anyway, if you're a Strontium Dog fan. So yeah, thanks again for coming on, Alan. And yeah, until next time, keep on living the life of Die.